Órale, bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. I'm Jorge Martin, and gracias everybody for joining us. So today we are going back east, the land of crab cakes, of Edgar Allan Poe, and it's also the home of my favorite baseball stadium outside of Los Angeles. The great state of Maryland is home to the Baltimore Ravens and Todd Karpovich. He covers them for SI and Raven Country. He also covers the Orioles, so he's going to be doing double duty pretty soon. So I don't know when he's going to sleep, but let's welcome in Todd. Todd, bienvenidos. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, this is awesome. It's how are you feeling? We're right on the cusp of training camp starting. I mean, I know guys. I saw that Lamar Jackson reported with the rookies. How's kind of like feeling in such a rabid football town as Baltimore right now?
Well, the Ravens training camp sold out in like 12 minutes, and
Wow.
they have a practice at the stadium on Saturday. 37,000 people sold out in less than 24 hours. So there's a lot of hype surrounding the Ravens. There's a lot of expectations this year. It's people are banging the Super Bowl drum for Baltimore. Lamar Jackson entering his fourth year. They got really, they have a solid veteran roster with some youth in there. Expectations are high for the Ravens. The goal now is to throw the Kansas City Chiefs and win the AFC.
So 37,000 tickets sold in 20 minutes in less than 24 hours, right? That's like a Springsteen concert. So that's
training camp sold out too. All 1,000 tickets each day.
Amazing. Well, I feel like there's one guy who's really brought up the excitement level, and he is one of the darlings of fantasy football, Lamar Jackson. It's kind of crazy. Second year in a row, 1,000 yards rushing, only player in NFL history to do that. You've pointed that out multiple times on RavenCountry.com, it's crazy to think that last year. People were, I think the expectations were that he was going to take a big step forward in the passing game, and it was kind of in neutral until kind of like a really hot finish at the end, which I'm very proud to say that I predicted. He was in fantasy scoring. He was quarterback 2 from week 13 on. He's such a unique weapon, and how do you see the balancing act between him continuing to be such a focal point in the running game, but also there's been an investment in the receivers, and we'll get into that, but how do you kind of see him maybe evolving as a passer?
Yeah, the Ravens, the pass blocking struggled last year. Like Lamar Jackson didn't have a whole lot of time to throw, and the receivers were sort of uneven. They had a lot of drops. They didn't run their routes all the way. They didn't get open. And the Ravens led the NFL in rushing for the second straight year. This year they boosted the offensive line. They much better at pass blocking. Villanueva and Zeitler, they brought in from Ben Cleveland. They drafted. The offensive line is going to be huge maulers. They brought in Sammy Watkins. They drafted Rashad Bateman. They have 8 guys competing for 6 wide receiver spots. They brought in T. Martin, another guy who's going to help, another coach who's going to help the passing game. So you're going to see more balance with the Ravens this year. I think Marquise Brown during his 3rd year is going to take a next step in his development. He looks spectacular during OTAs. He's shaped. He's running past people. He's fully healthy. But again, the Ravens are a running football team. If they're going to run for 200 yards a game, they're going to run. You'll see more balance. I think Lamar Jackson's going to hit on more deep passes downfield. He's got 2 good tight ends, Mark Andrews and Nick Boyle. And he's got intermediate stuff. I think you'll see more sweeps, more creative. You'll see more balance. But don't the Ravens are a running football team. They're going to run first. They're going to try to control the clock and pound teams. But again, you'll see the Ravens won't be the 32nd ranked passing game this year.
All right, now, and Lamar has been, he's run as many as 176 times. Last year, I believe it was 159 times. He missed the game with COVID. The 17th game. Are we looking at another, like 10 rushes a game with him when it comes down to it? Because that makes him such, people call him such a cheat code in fantasy football. An average of about 10 rushing attempts a game. Does that sound kind of about right?
Yeah, I think Lamar only has about maybe 3 or 4 plays called for him to run the ball. The rest is spontaneous. He runs out of pocket. He runs. So that's what makes him so dangerous. You never know what he's going to do with the ball. Yeah, I think Lamar 9 carries a game. Just from scrambling out of the pocket. Diving for a first down. Seeing an opening. If he sees an opening in green in front of him, he's going to take it. Yeah, Lamar could be close to 1,000 yards running again. Who knows? He's a dynamic player. He's got a he's playing for a contract, sort of. He's going to get his money, but he's 2 years removed from signing a big deal. So yeah, Lamar will be. I expect Lamar to take the next step in his development in year 4.
You mentioned that they're not going to be last in passing attempts. You look about how many, if you were to estimate, 2, 3, 5 more passes a game, pass plays called a game. Do you think that's a possibility, especially considering the improvement on the offensive line?
Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson, 25 pass attempts a game is a good number for him. It's a good number for the Ravens because they don't want to start chucking the ball outfield. They get in trouble. Even going back to Joe Flacco days, when Joe Flacco attempted 40 passes, the Ravens were in big trouble. They don't want Lamar Jackson throwing the ball 35, 40 times a game. That's a recipe for failure. So 25 pass attempts, be up there around 280 yards. It has the tight ends to throw inside the red zone. Avoid the turnovers. That's the key for the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, avoid the turnovers. Yeah, so I think 5 more passes would be fair. I think around 25 per game, I think would be a good number for Lamar Jackson.
Oh, geez, the 25 passes, 10 and 10 rushing attempts. I think that sounds golden, and make a lot of people very happy with this kind of team. Well, let's get into the running game. It's such not quite the quagmire that it was last year. You lost Mark Ingram. You still have J.K. Dobbins. You still have Gus Edwards in there. They were almost even in the amount of carries that they were last year. J.K. Dobbins had a few more passing targets coming his way. Is it still kind of looking like a 50-50 split? I mean, they're obviously very different runners, but a 50-50 split, or, I mean, there has been some talk about, or maybe some wishful thinking that J.K. Dobbins could take a little bit more of a step forward, kind of be a little more the lead back, and Gus Edwards a little bit more the relief pitcher.
I think that's going to be the case. J.K. Dobbins is going to get the majority of the carries. Just because of the kind of runner he is, he can get outside, he can run inside, and catch the ball. But Gus Edwards is a downhill runner. We're going to see Gus Edwards get the ball more as the season goes on. The weather gets colder, and Gus Edwards is a much more punishing runner. And when they start wearing teams down, we get late in the season. You're going to see Gus Edwards start to really start get the carries. I see J.K. Dobbins here, Gus Edwards, back, spelling JK, and then Gus Edwards really getting more carries as the year goes on. Justice Hill, another guy who might get some more carries this year. He moves into that third slot. We'll see. He hasn't done much in the running game. He's been a good player of special teams, but J.K. Dobbins will be the man this year.
How about, you mentioned a little bit about him getting some work in the passing game. He got a little work in college, but what kind of, I mean, we're looking at like, last year he averaged about 1.5 targets a game. Could that be something that comes up to like 3 or 4 targets a game this year? Is that a possibility, or is that maybe just asking a little too much, considering that Jackson is a running quarterback, and a lot of times running quarterbacks don't throw to their running backs as much?
No, most definitely. John Harbaugh said the priority is to have J.K. Dobbins catch the ball more out of the backfield. Now, he struggled with drops last year. He struggled catching the ball last year. He had that big drop in the playoff game against Buffalo that cost the Ravens a first down and extra yards behind yak yards after that. But yeah, John Harbaugh has emphasized that J.K. Dobbins is going to catch the ball more in the backfield, and J.K. Dobbins is working catching the ball. Catching the ball first and then running. So yeah, I think 3 targets would be a good number for J.K. Dobbins this year at the Ravens, especially with the way he can run and get outside, and you have Lamar pitching it to him.
Yeah, think about that. And Lamar, isn't it one of the underrated getting back to Lamar real quick, isn't it one of his underrated traits that he's a pretty accurate passer, and doesn't throw that many interceptions?
Yeah, he is. He's pretty accurate. He gets in trouble when he throws outside the numbers a little bit. His accuracy goes down, but he's strong in the middle of the field. He's good in the intermediate passes, and he'll hit one every now and then long term. So the goal this year is for Jackson to become more accurate outside the numbers and to hit more passes downfield. He's very good at the intermediate and the screens and middle of the field. So that's what teams have done. They try to take away the middle of the field and make Lamar Jackson throw outside. And if Lamar Jackson can throw outside, the offense is going to be very, very good.
Oh, that could be scary. Well, let's talk about outside, the receivers. Got Marquise Brown. You mentioned, you touched on the fact that he looked great in OTAs. Rashad Bateman, one of the most hyped up receivers coming out of this class. A lot of people were, some people in the fantasy community were a little bit disappointed because they're thinking that the volume isn't going to be there. But again, we could get into that. Sammy Watkins also, some of the reports came out that he was looking good in mini camp. How can you kind of assess this this receiver group, and could it be a group that that gets enough volume for at least one, maybe two, to be viable on a week-to-week basis?
That's the thing. Ravens have guys who can catch the ball, so targets could be an issue. They're spreading the ball out. Marquise Brown wants 100 targets. I don't know if he'll get that. We'll see. Sammy Watkins got to stay healthy. He doesn't have a great track record being on the field. Rashad Bateman was the most impressive receiver during OTAs as far as his route running and catching the football. He's a real smooth runner. Has good hands. So he's also got to avoid the rookie injury bug. Devin Duvernay, another guy who got limited action last year as a rookie, could see a bigger role this year. He was targeted a lot in OTAs for the simple fact that I think the Ravens want to see what he can do. And then you have, James Prochet, another guy, could be a bubble player. We'll see. And then, of course, they drafted Tyler Wallace from Oklahoma State, who's another guy who flashed at training camp. He's a hard-nosed player. He's been compared to Steve Smith, the way he catches the ball and gets downfield. So the Ravens have multiple weapons, wide receiver. The question is where the targets go. It'll be how the game sort of sets up for them. But the Marquise Brown is a deep downfield threat, so he'll get a chance to make plays downfield.
So, well, I guess with the talent there, I mean, I'm a big Marquise Brown fan. He went to college, junior college out here before he transferred to Oklahoma. Out here in Southern California. So he worked at a theme park. So that was that my kids have a pass to. So love to see that. Let's go to the tight ends. You talked about the middle of the field. One of the best in the game is Mark Andrews. And, he had kind of an uneven season. Obviously he's got the diabetes and that was a bit of a concern because he got COVID during the season last year, but still had a decent season. He's still one of like the top 5 or 6 tight ends from a fantasy perspective. Do you still see him being one of the focal points of the passing game?
Yeah, him and Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has a comfort zone with Andrews, especially when he has to check down when he gets out of his reads. So Mark Andrews is going to have a huge year. Again, he's a free agent next year. So he's a guy playing for a contract. Nick Bull is a good blocker, also can catch the football. He's coming off a knee injury. Pat Ricard, he's a fullback tight end sort of hybrid. He'll get some action. Now, that's like Josh Oliver from the Jaguars, who the Ravens traded for a conditional pick. Could be the third tight end there. But I see Mark Andrews getting a lot of targets again this year, making a lot of plays.
How about in the red zone? You still see him being one of the top focal points of the in the red zone?
Yeah, he'll be the big target inside the red zone for Lamar, just because his ability to get open, to get off coverage, and his hands. He has good hands for a guy his size. He's been somebody to target kind of like in those kind of like the 5th, 6th rounds in fantasy drafts, and I think he's kind of like that one of the, after you get the big 3 tight ends with Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, and George Kittle, he's like in that next group and he's such a 17 touchdowns in the last 2 years. Just, I mean, he's a beast. He's a beast. You mentioned the upgrade in the offensive line, and obviously, it's all kind of almost strange to say, that they had an upgrade when
one of the things the Ravens traded away Orlando Brown, a Pro Bowl player. You got Ronnie Stanley, who's coming back from the ankle injury, which he's still kind of working back. I believe he's on the PUP list, correct?
Yes,
He's starting training camp. But when this group is together, I'm a big offensive line guy. I think they're as unsung heroes when it comes to fantasy football as there is. How do you is this more of a run offensive line, or is this going to be kind of like an offensive line that could really be great both in the run and the pass game?
Both. I mean, the Ravens, Derek DeCosta had said part of the issues were in the passing game was because the offensive line couldn't pass block. So he went out and boosted the offensive line. You got Ronnie Stanley, who's 6'6", 315. You got Ben Cleveland, if he starts, at 6'6", 357. Bradley Bozeman moving to center. Huge deal for the Ravens. Really solidified the center position. He played at Alabama. He became a left guard in the pros. He'll move to center, which will settle that position, which the Ravens had trouble at the center position the last 2 years with Matt Skura and McCarty. Zeitler, 6'4", 315. Villanueva, 6'9", 320. So you're talking about big mauling guys who are going to be real attack teams, and they're veteran guys too. We've got a lot of veterans on that team who are going to attack defenders. They're going to be able to pull, so they'll be good at run blocking, and I think they'll be solid at pass blocking. The key is staying away from injuries. Well, it's a 17-game season this year, so it's going to be more pressure on the bodies, a little more, little more, physicality to the players. So that's going to be the key. The health is going to be a key on the offensive line. But the Ravens do have some depth. They got some backups. They got Tyree Phillips, the guy they drafted last year, started some games last year, dealt with some injuries, and Ben Powers, another guy who I'm hearing the Cowboys are interested in acquiring, but the Ravens won't trade him because they need that depth. So the offensive line will be a huge part of this offense.
You mentioned the 17th game. I mean, players seem to be really gearing up. I mean, are the teams kind of looking at I've heard some teams are kind of thinking about not quite resting players, but maybe not pushing players in certain games, maybe getting guys off their feet in blowouts. Is that kind of like the feeling you're getting with that, as teams are approaching the 17th game?
That's definitely key. The Ravens would love to get up by 3 or 4 touchdowns and rest some of their starters. They have Claes Campbell, Derek Wolfe, and Brandon Williams on the defensive line are all over 30 years old. The secondary, they don't have much depth at safety. The Ravens didn't get out far. If they can get out ahead of teams and blow teams out, they'll rest their stars. But again, the Ravens have a tough schedule, so I don't see a whole lot of room for where they'll be able to do that. The key is going to be healthy. The healthiest team usually wins. It's going to be there at the end of the year.
And that's the thing, the AFC North is such a crucible. I mean, when you look at that, when you look at those teams, I mean, people are expecting Pittsburgh to take a step backward. They had offensive line issues last year. I mean, you've seen them year to year. I don't think you expect them to take a step backward, but the Browns took a big step forward last year. And I think the Bengals, how do you see how difficult this division is?
Well, the Steelers are going to, the way it's stacking out, they're going to try to win with defense. And that defense is going to be very, very good, especially their pass rush is going to be fierce with Watt. They just signed Justin Houston. Big Ben's looking for a bounce back year. We'll see what he can do. Cleveland probably has the most talented roster in the division. However, can Baker Mayfield, can he overcome some of his challenges? The difference between the Ravens and the Browns is Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield. Jackson's a bigger playmaker. If Mayfield can take that next step, the Browns are going to push for division title. And the Bengals sort of the wild card. Joe Burrow got hurt last year. We don't know what he can do after a full season. I think they'll be better. I think there's at least 2 playoff teams in the AFC North. I think maybe a third with the Steelers. If they don't turn the ball over and they play defense the way they're supposed to. They'll be a tough team. And the Steelers and the Ravens, throw the records out the window. They always the rivalry game, and it's a bloodbath, and that's the way it's going to be.
Those games, I don't watch when it's Steelers Ravens, especially when the weather's cold. Even no matter what fantasy players I have in there, I just watch that game as a football fan, kind of like as when you enjoy a good pitcher's duel in baseball. It's just kind of like you enjoy the hits, you enjoy the lack of offense, for lack of a better term.
Now, they used to hate each other, the Ravens and Steelers. Ray Lewis, he got off the bus and wanted to fight, and Plaxico Burress, and they're stepping on guys' chests. They had some really animosity. Now there's a mutual respect there. They're still great games, but they play hard against each other. I think the Browns and the Steelers now have the animosity between the teams in the division. Yeah, the Ravens Steelers is always must see it, and then the Browns are starting to get a really good rivalry with the Ravens. I mean, last year's game in Cleveland was the best game of the year when Lamar came out of the locker room with cramps and led the Ravens to a victory. It was unbelievable. Prime time game. It was uncanny. So we'll probably see more of this. There's more of those types of games this year.
So they'll really empty the tank in those games, right?
Yeah.
Like I was trying to find a funny little term there. Yeah, oh, thank you for the laughter. It's early out here in California, but it's good to laugh any time of the day. One last football question. I always like to also ask about the defense. I mean, I believe one of your articles had that the secondary was ranked one of the top ones in the NFL. The Ravens are so well known for defense as much as anything. Is this a team that not just from a fantasy standpoint, but maybe a team to kind of worry about when you have players playing against the Ravens on both levels, both against the run and the pass?
Yeah, the Ravens are going to get their turnovers this year. I think they'll be they're the top of the NFL as far as forcing turnovers and getting turnovers because the secondary is so talented. The pass rush now that's problematic. They lost Matt Judon and Ngakwe to free agency and then replaced him with veteran players. They drafted two guys, Owe and Dalen Hayes from Notre Dame, who don't have proven track records as pass rushers. Owe is probably going to start. Now Chandler Jones is out there wants to get traded. I hear from Arizona, and we'll see. Justin Houston's still available, so we'll see what the Ravens pull the trigger on a pass rusher. But the Ravens, they say quarterbacks sort of get rid of the ball quicker against them. They've done the analytics because they blitz. Don Martindale, the defensive coordinator, likes to blitz them everywhere. He'll blitz a secondary, defensive line, linebackers. So we'll see. The Ravens defense will be a top 10 defense again, one way or another. I'm sure.
Oh, awesome, Todd. This has been great. I can't believe how much information we've gotten in only a little more than 20 minutes. But there's one bit of fun information that I like to close out these interviews with. Is this is a Latino focused podcast, and my heritage goes back to Mexico, and so Mexican food is a big staple. I know you're on the East Coast, but hopefully, and you're in the land of seafood. Can you get good tacos in Baltimore? And what are some of your favorite types of taco meats?
We have great Mexican food out here in Baltimore. Awesome. We got a lot of immigrants, a lot of food trucks, stuff like that. I tell you, every Wednesday, fish tacos for me. Mahi fish tacos. Get it. My father-in-law belongs to a club down the street from us. So Mahi tacos, the best. Eat them every Wednesday. It's great. And then we get burritos and there's another great place not far from us called Pappy's, which is a good Mexican place. So yeah, we do Mexican a lot of Mexican food here.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, and you know what? You mentioned the food trucks. It's especially anywhere I go, I feel like some of the best tacos I get are at the food trucks, especially like the carne asada. I don't know what it is. They make it better on those.
Yeah, like I think all the ingredients are fresh, and they're aiming to please. And food trucks are fun. It's a good time going out to these food trucks.
Oh man, and it's beautiful with the summer. Things are opening up. I mean, gosh, this is awesome. I've been to Baltimore a couple times, and beautiful city. I've gotten to see a ball game at right there at Camden Yards. I wasn't kidding. It's one of my absolute favorites. Just a beautiful ballpark. Oh God,
swept the Washington Nationals.
Oh God, right there in the backyard. How awesome. Muy bien. Well, things are looking up. I know. I remember. Well, growing up in the Earl Weaver days and the, later Cal Ripken Sr. and Cal Ripken Jr. really taking over the, the shortstop position. There's something great about baseball when the Orioles are good again. So
they'll be good again. You got to give them some time. They're rebuilding, but they're on the right track. Their minor league system's top 5 among all MLB teams. They got some really good players coming up.
Yeah, and you mentioned that catcher coming up, Adley
Rushman. Yeah. Number 1 prospect in baseball. Well, number 2 prospect all baseball. Yeah.
Well, if he becomes another Buster Posey type, I mean, we might see black and orange, a different catcher, leading a team in those colors. So
not black and orange, not the Giants.
Oh my goodness. Well, Todd, as I like to say in Spanish, es un gran placer. This was such a great time. I really appreciate your time in doing this. If you could just give our Familia community just where they could find your work.
si.com/Ravens and at Todd Karpovich and on Twitter. Thank you. Gracias.
Oh, gracias, mi amigo. And everybody, familia, eso es todo for our show. Thanks again to Anchor for being our hosting network and making sure independent podcast gets out to the Familia community. Also, thank you to YouTube for putting our video faces on in front of you. So please subscribe there at YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find original content, including a write-up on this article on FamiliaFFB.com. You can find me at Jorge Martin 17. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Familia FFB, and don't forget our Familia FFB Facebook page, everybody. Todd, otra vez, gracias. Everybody, familia, thank you so much. Remember, todos somos familia.